the final desolation, go ye therefore. And we understand that the final desolation ends when Yahushua comes back. We understand that the return, when Yahuwah says, and when I return again the captivity of the house of Judah and the house of Israel, that's a New Jerusalem. We understand also, I'm just kind of recapping, that if we don't live the way we should live, walking in Torah, we're going to get the same punishment as those who are going to be punished for enslaving us. So,
And not repenting of it.
and if we don't repent of our ways. And so this malice thing that we have up our sleeve to blame everyone else for us being here, leave that to Yah. You know what we need to do? Acknowledge why we are here, and that's because of disobedience. It's not to downplay what has happened, but it is to say, blame everyone you want until we acknowledge why we are here. It doesn't help us. It doesn't do anything for us. So let's.
I realized the other day that the best weapon in spiritual warfare is obedience. I used to feel like it was up to me to fight, you know, like when I would feel under attack. But what I find is that the best way for me to respond to being attacked is to be obedient to the Most High. And then I watch Him handle the things that afflict me, you know. And yeah, just as you mentioned that, it come down to like our obedience.
Every time I fight, I lose.
Yeah.
But when Yah fights, I win. Okay, so the final desolation, go ye therefore. Last week we dealt with what's going to happen to us, the desolation, Jerusalem being destroyed, how that prophecy from the Hamashiach was an extended prophecy that some people think was just relating to Jerusalem, but it actually extends to the end of time, to when He comes back, and everything in between. So this week we're looking at go ye therefore, our commission. What did He send us to do? What was our purpose? It was immediately the disciples going forward to do what Israel as a whole refused to do, in the likeness of what Jonah. You realize how Jonah's story mimics Christ's story, and he even refers to it that, like as Jonah was in the belly of the whale. So you realize how that mimics us not wanting to give the message to the people who we think we hate. While Yahuwah is saying to us, I saved you when you were not even a people. You were the smallest in number, the weakest as a people, everything. And I made you strong. But now you don't want to reach someone else. And that whole Jonah story gives us a glimpse of what our mission was and what Yahuwah will do for the people that we hate now. Just as a lot of us hate Caucasian race because of slavery, and not look, I mean, we should hate ourselves as much. Not saying that black people should hate themselves, but I'm just saying, if you're going to look at it from that perspective, we should realize that the ships, the Roman Church, Portugal king, Spain king, Isabel, Ferdinand, none of those people, King John, none of them, Henry VIII, none of them could take us from the arm of Yahuwah. We had to push ourselves free by disobedience. So we are as much to be blamed. And if you don't believe me, think by blaming someone else and still being disobedient, think we're going to inherit the new kingdom. It's not going to happen. It means then that our leaving here, as Yahuwah says that, I'm the person that is going to take you from here. You will be sold into slavery and no man shall buy you. No man shall redeem you. No man is going to come get you. Not like the first time. there'll be no Navy SEAL to do a rescue mission, or MI5, or whoever else it is. No one will rescue you. When your rescue is coming, it's when the clouds break and the New Jerusalem is coming, and I'm going to put you in that city if you're obedient. And obedience means you're going to walk through Nineveh and proclaim Torah. You see what I'm saying? Are you following me?
Same thing.
It means that the people who killed your brother, you're going to have to walk through the city and proclaim the faithfulness of Yahuwah, the love of Yahuwah. Just let that sink in for a while. I don't want to preach, I just want to put the message forward, because sometimes we miss the point. The point of embracing our Hebrew heritage is not to boast, but to start to walk in Torah, and as Obadiah says, not in a legalistic form, but in love. It doesn't mean that we don't stand up for justice. It doesn't mean that we don't speak for those who are oppressed. It doesn't mean that we don't coalesce to say, look here, you need to stop killing us in the street. It doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean you shun the things that are being done to give ease to your people, because Yahuwah speaks of that also when he says that, inasmuch as you have not given me to drink when I was thirsty, given them to drink, you have not given me. It means that those who did not see us in the plight that we're in, because in that very word, it tells us that we're going to be in a plight until the end. You see that? When it says that, inasmuch I was hungry or thirsty and you gave me not to drink. And they said, when did we see you hungry and did not give you?
Can somebody pull
And
up
he says,
scripture?
inasmuch as you have not done it unto one of these, the least of my brethren, you have not done it unto me. It means that his brethren here doesn't mean church members. He was speaking literally of the tribe of Israel. 12 tribes and all those who are joined to him. And he says, inasmuch as you have not done it unto one of these, it means that to the end, unto the end, just as he said to Abraham, your seed shall be afflicted for 400 years. Unto the very end, we will be in a position where we are subservient. That is why no matter how much march, not to say that they are not necessary, no matter how much protest, we are still where we are. Because Yahuwah says, I am the one who is going to save you, going to rescue you. So we have to understand what's happening in context of this prophecy. And he says that those who look on us in this situation, including us looking on each other, because a part of Torah was that you were commanded to be hospitable to every stranger. And there was supposed to be a room in your house, the inn in Sukkot, Stanley, that we think is a hotel. When the Bible speaks about the inn, that part of the house that is set aside specifically for those who are sojourning, who are traveling.
Yep, absolutely.
That was a part of our life. So hospitality was built in.
Yep. It wasn't a forced statement. It was intentional.
No. So it applies to us as well as it applies to those who are looking on us, how we treat each other and how they treat us. And he said, your eligibility, in addition to, I mean, if you're walking in Torah, you would have given him water. Yeah. So he didn't even have to say that. If you were walking in Torah, you would have given him food. That goes without saying. But your eligibility for entering the kingdom is a part of that hangs not on just saying, I accept you, Yahuwah. It hangs on how you treat his people. And he says it clearly. I don't know if someone find the text.
I have it.
It's Matthew 25:40.
Yeah.
Okay, read on.
Thank you.
Hey, you want to read the whole thing? Who somebody want to read? Oh,
Found it.
Yeah.
Okay, Stanley, read it. I don't know who said it.
Who said Matthew 25?
Who said Matthew 25:40?
They might be a little nervous to read.
Okay, all right, Stanley, you read it.
I read it.
That was me.
That was you? Michaela? Okay,
Yeah,
if you
I
want to
can
read
read
it.
it. Yes.
Yes. Okay, go ahead.
All right, I have it right here.
Hmm.
Verse 40. The king will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me."
No, go read from before. Okay, all right. Stanley, can you read
Yeah.
before?
Yeah. Actually, I'll read 40 and go down. So it's pretty much a long. I'm gonna start at 35. Uh, it's hold on, you want to do the CJB or you want to do the KJV?
KJV. It's most people understand. Oh, Michaela, do you want to read? Sorry, Stanley.
No.
No,
Michaela,
he can do it. That's all right.
Okay.
sure?
Yeah, that's
Because we're
completely fine.
always reading, so
Yeah,
anyone who wants to read, we're happy to let you read.
Right. You want to read now?
Oh, good. I read, so I'm happy.
Yeah. So I'm gonna start at 35. For I was hungry and you gave me meat. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was a stranger and you took me in. Naked and ye clothed me. I was sick and ye visited me. I was in prison and ye came unto me. Then shall the righteous answer him, saying, Lord, when saw we thee and hungered and fed thee, or thirsty and gave thee drink? When saw we thee a stranger and took thee in, or naked and clothed thee? Or when saw we thee sick or in prison and came unto thee? And the king shall answer and say unto them, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye have done it unto one of the least of these my brethren, ye have done it unto me. And then 41, then shall he say also unto them on the left hand, Depart from me, ye cursed, into everlasting fire, prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was an hungered, and ye gave me no meat. I was thirsty, and ye gave me no drink. I was a stranger, and ye took me not in, naked, and ye clothed me not, sick and in prison, and ye visited me not. Then shall they and then shall they answer him, saying, Lord, when saw we thee in hunger, or athirst, or a stranger, or naked, or sick, or in prison, and did not minister unto thee? Then shall he answer them, saying, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye did it not to one of the least of these, you did it not to me. And these shall go away into everlasting punishment, but the righteous into life eternal.
So that says it all. So I'm gonna go to the text now. So you realize then that there's a calling as to what we do and how we do it. It's not just keeping Sabbaths, keeping Sukkot, Feast of Tabernacles in September. It's not just feast days.
Or even just being a good person. Or even just being a good person.
Right. Or quote unquote good person. But it has direct implication upon the people that would be among us as Hebrews and among those who brought us here. And not those who brought the children of those who brought us here, because they brought our foreparents here. But we have a duty to live a particular way. They have a calling or a requirement to see that and also sympathize, because we are in this position. It doesn't matter how we want to feel about it, we are still slaves. That's the reality. As long as you're in a land of your captivity, you're still a slave. But I can say much more on that another time. Okay, so, thanks. Matthew 28, 18 to 20. And Yeshua came and spake unto them, saying, All power is given unto me in heaven and in earth. Go ye therefore and teach all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit. Continue. Teaching them to observe all things whatsoever I have commanded you, and lo, I am with you even unto the end of the earth. Here the word teaching or teach appears, and we we tend to see teaching as an oratory or something that you do mostly by instructing, saying. And as we were hinting earlier, to teach means to rear up. And there are 5 Hebrew words that is generally translated teaching, or that gives you the idea of teaching.
Chris, if you don't mind, I'm looking at the CJB. You know, I love this.
I know you love to look. You want to read it?
If you don't mind me reading this, because I think this will make it clearer.
I read it. Yeah.
And that's why we do being intentional with it. So
Yeah.
read that same scripture with this CJB, which is the Complete Jewish Bible. If those who are not familiar with it, it's on the Bible app that you can download, and it's the version that's closest to the Hebrew, and it's in English, but it's the closest to use. That tries to keep the integrity of the Hebrew words. So the same verse, Matthew 28:18-20 reads, Yeshua came and talked with them. He said, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore, go and make people from all nations into Talmudim, which we would call students, immersing them into the reality of the Father. So it says immersing them into the reality of the Father, the Son, and the Ruach HaKodesh, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And remember, I will be with you always, yes, even until the end of the age. And I find it, that's the end of it, but I find it very interesting. It says immersing them, not baptizing.
Oh, you know why I didn't?
Into the reality of the Father.
I deliberately didn't read that. And I'm going to tell you why. It touches a subject that I didn't want to go into, because, and actually, that's where we are. Because the name, some people think the name, when he says the name in Hebrew, when you says in someone's name, your name is your character.
It's your character.
So when you say in the name of the Father, Son, and the Ruach HaKodesh, you're talking about the reality, really, the immersing them in Torah.
Yes, and that's and I just love looking at this version because it doesn't say immersing them in the reality.
It doesn't say.
It's
so
the character, like it's clear saying who he is.
Yeah, I didn't read it because of the direction but it does fit what we were talking about, though, in terms of living it out. But yeah, I understand. Yeah, I read it. You know, I'm gonna read that first, and I'm gonna go to the Hebrew first, and then I'm gonna come from the Hebrew to kind of breaking it down a little simpler for those. And
I'm actually putting the message so people can see it. Like it just when you can see it, it's just.
I think it is like powerful. Like we just even for one, when we read the Hebrew, you know, or we get on a Hebrew understanding, it simplifies things so much, right? Like I was reading something the other day. I think it was in I can't remember what chapter it was, but it was talking about, you know, it was Moses' song. And in the KJV, you know, it says, my doctrine will fall as the dew. And I'm thinking, okay, doctrine is a strong word. When I looked in the Hebrew, he was saying my speech, you know, my word will fall as a dew. And it's just interesting how a word like doctrine puts off different signals in your mind away from what the original intent was, because it's actually much simpler, you know, than what we've come to understand.
Then it takes you right back to Torah, because those were his words.
Right. And so when I hear something like immersing them into the reality, it resonates more with not even more with my understanding. It helps me to understand more about what that really means.
What they were supposed to be doing.
Yeah, what I'm supposed to be doing. Because when you tell me to go baptize somebody, it's like, I'm not a pastor or a preacher. I don't even have a body of water, you know? Like, what am I going to baptize them in, you know? But when it says immerse them into reality, that then puts responsibility to me to understand, okay, what does it mean to immerse somebody into a reality of the Most High? First, it makes me think of me first living in the reality of the Most High, to be up in here and comfortable, to then bring you into it. And I bring you into it how? By living it out. When we interact, we are essentially like, if I can put it in this abstract way, it's like when we interact, you are living in an entire world, and I was in my world, when we come, our worlds almost mesh. I get to see a little bit about your experience. I get to learn a little bit about how you perceive things, how you understand things, and you get to learn about me, my history, my experience, how I understand, how I perceive things. Now, the goal is that when you interact with me, you are immersed or introduced into the reality of the Most High, being that you're interacting with somebody who lives in the reality of the Most High. If I am walking in Torah, like ideally, if I understand it in my heart, if I have a relationship with the Most High in that way, and I'm immersed into the reality of Him, you know? And so it gives me then a clearer understanding of what it means when I go forth, when I'm living before people, when I'm interacting with people. It's shown forth in how I speak and how I am, in how I love people and how I care for them, the actions that I do, the things I do when when I don't know that I'm being watched, the things people will notice and pick up about my character. Not just preaching to you necessarily, but as you said, in teaching, rearing somebody up, and that being the example of somebody who's been reared, not just somebody who's been told the truth, but you see by my life and my example, my testimony, the highs and the lows and the products of the lessons that I've learned through that. You know, and then I bring you into that world. I bring you into that reality, not of my own understanding, but of what the reality of the Most High.
Living through you.
That living through me, yeah. And just, this is something I agree, Stanley, something like that just can blow things.
It's so simple. Like, it just takes away it takes away any type of what I think what it's trying to say. No, it's very concrete what it's saying.
It is what it is.
It is what it is, and it's just amazing.
Michaela, have you been trying to say something? I'm sorry.
Oh no, I just been unmuted. I was gonna say, I think it's like that with everything. The way people perceive things versus how it was intended to be it can just change so frequently based on, like you said, people's experiences. And I think it's like that with everything, whether in life, relationships, or even as we were talking about with translations of the Bible. Like if we compare, like we were saying, the Jewish complete translation versus NIV, what we're saying versus what was intended to say, it's so different. And so understanding the truth before we understand our own thoughts, I think, is very vital.
Wow, that's
because we have to understand
powerful.
we have to understand these translations all stemming from the KG. We're coming from is ancient Greek, which is Koine Greek. They don't even use that Greek anymore. So a lot of the words from Hebrew to Greek to English don't even make sense. They don't mean anything. That's why they call them translation. That's why the difference between a translation and a transliteration.
Yes.
A transliteration is literally them saying, this is the Hebrew word. We don't know what it means, so we're going to make it mean something else. We're just going to make something up and say it means this.
Yeah, just bring the sound.
It's literally them making it up and saying, hey, we're just going to say, like, even just, I mean, no disrespect to anybody, but even the name Jesus, then that name in itself means nothing. But Yeshua or Yehoshua actually points back to the Most High. Like every Hebrew name, all of it points back to the Most High. So even when you look at Paul, that Paul means nothing. But when you look at Shaul, it points back to the Most High. So all these, when they use these words, it's a transliteration, which means it means nothing. They just said it means something and just keeps a tradition that says it means it, but it literally means nothing.
Okay, so we're gonna. Someone wanted to say something?
Yeah, my friend, guys. I'm not sure if you guys actually hear me.
Yes.
My name is Osama. I follow your channel. I respect your work, man.
Welcome. Thank you. To Yah be the glory.
Yes. The thing is, look, my English is not my mother tongue language, so I will try to simplify it as much as I can. I agree with your friend. He just mentioned that Bible, it was in a different language, old language, and everything. Look, I will try to memorize this huge subject, to make it very short as much as I can. First of all, as an Arabic Muslim guy, there is a general idea that there is a conflict, it's a religion conflict between us. No, it's not like that.
Ishmael and Israel, brothers.
Yeah, exactly. I am from Palestine, and I'm speaking from experience. So the thing is about Hebrew, actually, it's the first religion, like before Islam. And Jewish people, even in Quran, it's mentioned that they were the chosen one. We don't deny that. Everything is truth about it. They were their chosen one, and God delivered them like the first Bible, you can say, the Torah and everything. But the thing is, they change it. That's why it's transferred to Christianity. Then Christianity, they done the same thing. Then Quran came in only one language, which is Arabic. That's the difference. Look, I will not go in details in this subject in particularly, but the thing is about Quran, there is no more than one version for it. And all the stories which we believe in all prophets, like we believe in Jesus, we believe in Isa, Musa, Ibrahim, we believe in all prophets, including Muhammad. They have the same message. I'm not saying that they have different message. Torah and the Bible, Injil and Quran, most likely, if you read them, we are actually almost the same. Especially Torah. Like if you see the Torah and Muslims and Jewish people as a religion, as a tradition, we are very similar. We pray almost 5 times a day, like the same things. We eat the same way. We have halal and haram. They have like salam, shalom. It's almost similar. As I'm not speaking, but as when we speak about religion, for Muslims or Arabic, especially coming from Middle East, I'm speaking from experience. We are very into this. Like since we're child, since we grow up, we speak about this stuff. We search. We do our own research. There is one person who I respect his work. His name is Sheikh Ahmed Deedat. He's originally Indian who lived he started his life in Africa, South Africa, I believe, when Christianity started separating, I guess, or yeah. So he studied 40 years. He memorized the Bible, he memorized the Torah, he memorized the Quran. And he can summarize a huge subject for you very easily. If you can give him a time and just videos, it will be nice, or read about him, it would be nice, because he spent 40 years. He did not study for 2 years or 3 years, no. He studied for 40 years. He memorized all Bible version, because the difference between Quran and Bible, there is more than one version. It's not only not known language or something, no, it's more than one version. Same thing goes with Torah. I'm not very sure, but he memorized all of them. He studied them for 40 years. Then he came out and started, speaking about religion on public. So if you guys can speak about him as well. Usually I don't do this. I don't like to involve myself in religion subjects, especially online. But I feel that I have a duty to speak about it, because it's like he says on his on the page that you seek the truth. So if you are seeking the truth, it's better to ask someone who actually studied this for real, like for 40 years or something.
Can I
like
ask
he
again?
devoted his whole life for it. And respect for all you guys.
Thank you.
I never done this. I just downloaded Zoom. Just to speak with you guys.
Can you ask him to type that name in the chat for us, please?
Can you type?
Yeah, can you type that name?
My name is Osama. Don't be afraid. It's okay.
Oh no. Can you type the scholar's name?
Yeah, he's very famous. He passed away, but his name is Sheikh Ahmed Deedat. Look, I am not a perfect Muslim. I'm not coming to this saying that I know this, I know that. No, at all. Probably you guys, you actually studied the subject more than me about religion, but I'm just giving you the the easiest way or the shortest way for the truth, because for especially Middle East or Arabic people, this is our thing. Like every country have their own thing, So when it comes to religion, it's something which is we are very open about it, or I don't know how we are involved with. Like I come from Palestine. You can find churches, like you can find Jewish, Muslim, and Christianity. The three Ibrahim, like الديانات الإبراهيمية. يعني إحنا بنسميها, we call it the Ibrahim religion,
Yep.
like which is started from Yahudiya, Torah, then Bible, then Islam. So if you wanna start with Torah, it's nice because it's actually the first religion. Like it's actually the first Ibrahim religion. Then after it, then came Christianity, then Islam, and we believe in all prophets and we give them the same respect. And there is also one point which I need to mention. Muhammad did not come for specific people. You have to understand there is a huge, even you can actually see a lot of Jewish people who speaks about the difference between Islam and Torah, or like Quran and Torah. Torah specifically came for specific people. It's mentioned for the chosen people from God. Muhammad came for all humanity. There is no discrimination between those people or those like you. I hope that you guys understand this point, because this is also a difference between Torah, I guess, and the Quran. I'm not sure.
On that point, it's a difference in the understanding of Torah and the Quran. Torah was given, and from the beginning we started looking at the process of salvation. That is what this study is about. Torah was given to a specific set of people, and their duty was to reach the rest of the people around them. So it was never given for them to keep for themselves. And that is what we're going into now. Go ye therefore. So no, it wasn't exclusive.
Yeah.
Maybe. I'm not sure. I can share with you some Jewish people who speaks about this. I don't know their names.
Some people will tell you that, but trust me, when you read it, you'll realize that it's not what people say is what it says to you, the books, the Torah says to you. Then you'll realize that people, just as you said, people will interpret and twist it for their own benefit.
Yeah, and
to say that,
yeah, and he mentioned as well the previous person. He mentioned that I believe it's Greece, the language.
Koine Greek. Yep, Koine Greek was the original language the Septuagint was written in.
Yeah, it's hard to understand. Maybe it will be interpreted as different meaning for it. Yeah, it might happen. That's included. And the thing is, I heard that from my own research. It's not only, I'm not speaking from from only one perspective. I actually done my research and I keep searching on this online and stuff like this. They actually changed. That's why we face as Muslims. This is what we face trouble, with other, let's say Torah or Bible. They actually change it. That's why they have more than one version. So it doesn't make sense for us. Like if you have Bible, it should be one version, it should be understood language. It should not be like more than one version. And recently I have a Christian friend who just told me recently that there is Orthodox and there is a lot of types of Christianity, and not all of them they believe in Mary, and not all of them believe in certain stuff. So we are actually more close to the Catholic people, I guess, to the Catholic who believe in Mary and they believe in everyone. I guess, I'm not sure. So
go ahead. I'm sorry. No, continue. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
So the thing is, the difference between there is no huge difference, but when you speak about religion, what we face as Muslims, when we talk about religion with other people, when they start defending Bible or defending Torah, it's not a game for us. It's something which we consider it very seriously. We don't say that there is one version 2 or version 3, or there is more than meaning for it or something like that. It should be clear and in very clear language, which is that's why it's united almost all Middle East, Arabic language, which separated through Middle East from Morocco till even it reached Malaysia and like more. They have one language. So that's the difference. Anyhow, I'm not sure if I'm the only Muslim guy who actually entered this, this.
I don't know. We don't know everyone who enters, so.
But I think the point.
But we welcome you.
Absolutely.
Anyhow, just check Ahmed Didat videos, and if I actually.
If someone typed his name.
Can you type his name?
Yeah,
No, someone did.
I posted, and he speaks about stuff which you guys speak about deeper stuff, but he have some videos which he speak about normal stuff which common people ask. So don't judge him from the first video. Some of his videos is stuff which we don't consider deep. Okay. I hope that you understand me on this.
Yeah.
Like something which considered very like something which we doesn't need to think deeply about. But as a knowledge, I respect Ahmed Didat. He's the only one which I consider him the best.
Oh, somebody typed it. Ahmed Didat.
Ahmed Didat, yeah.
Ahmed Didat, yes. And he's actually not Arabic. He's Indian and he speaks English. He has little accent, but he's good.
Okay, we'll check him out.
For sure.
And he's very direct.
And Osama, thank you. I think the point you brought up is.
If I go one day to Jamaica, I will definitely text you guys.
All right, definitely. Sure. Thanks.
I am 400. What you say? 420 friendly. Yeah. So I am cool guy, man. Just like to speak. I like to speak, especially when I like to speak about religion, about politics, but with open-minded people who think deeper. So. But my English is not perfect. I'm sorry, guys, but I'm doing my best here.
Okay. You're doing well.
Yeah, thank you.
Salam alaikum to you, man.
Wa alaikum salam. Peace upon you.
Ishmael and Israel. They were brothers. There was no conflict between those nations.
I don't know why there's a lot of hate. I am Palestinian, so I'm not allowed to enter Palestine. I'm not sure if you know that. I was born in UAE. I lived almost all my life here. For me to enter Palestine, it's forbidden. I'm not allowed. And legally speaking, on paper, I am Jordanian. So when I see that my country is like, it's been almost 70 years right now, and there is a lot of politics involved in this subject, it makes me feel like it's bad. Like my grandfather told me we used to have Jewish friends. Like they're Jewish, they have history in Palestine. We don't deny that as Muslims. We lived in peace together. Even when the crusade came to Palestine, they killed all Muslim. You can watch the movie, which is even Western movie, not Muslim movie, which is Kingdom Heaven or Heaven Kingdom, which speaks what they done when they enter Palestine. They killed all the Muslims. Salah ad-Din came to Palestine to defend the Muslims, and after he took Palestine, he did not kill any people who have different religion. We lived there peacefully for so many years without any war or anything. But right now, the thing is, when you speak about Palestine, politics get involved in the subject. And unfortunately, even Israel, they stole their own religion somehow, and they used it to create a country to occupy other people's country. Even the most religious people from who live in Israel, who are actually Hebrew, not even Muslims, they say the same thing. I can actually share the videos with that if you want.
I know. I have the history books.
Yeah.
I have the books.
History.
I know.
Yeah, you're actually talking real history. So it's real stuff.
So it's for me. Connect the dots together, and they know that what they are doing is bad. So I never met a Jewish person, Jewish people in person. I don't have any hate for any religion in the world. you have your religion, I have my religion, but that doesn't mean that it allows you to, you know, occupy my country and kick me out or kill my children or like what they do in Gaza and stuff like that. And believe me, as individual people, Jewish people are maybe better than Arabic as individual, but as a group, what they are doing in Palestine, I don't consider it to be acceptable, unfortunately. Like, if you want to speak the truth, you know, we're speaking the truth here. So it makes me feel sad that there is a lot of people who actually defend what's going on in Israel, and they're saying that this is their right. No, that I don't consider this is their right. I have a lot of Arabic videos and writers and you know, clips which I can share, but most of them are in Arabic. But the English one, I can do my best to share if you want. And I hope that I actually add some enjoyment to your discussion, guys.
Osama, do you have a Discord?
Yeah.
Do you have the app called Discord?
Discord, yeah, I can download it, no issues.
Yeah, so we have a chat that we made, you know, for if we want to like encourage, like, because things you're talking about are very like, you know, insightful and deep things, you know, and so if you ever want to like continue, you know, this discussion, you know, feel free to like come in the Discord. We can like email you the link.
Yeah, of course. I'm really grateful that you guys.
Can someone put the email in the chat and you just email us and we can just.
If you ever want to like dive deeper, like we can definitely get on Discord.
But
and, like,
by the way, guys, just for you, I don't want to say it. It's I don't want to involve in this too much because even politics, speaking about here, it's not allowed. I'm calling you guys.
Oh, we don't do politics.
No, he's talking about from his country. He talking about if he were to get.
Guy who just like to discuss, you know, history. That's it.
Okay.
You're talking about from a country level, like where he's at. He could get in trouble.
Someone who's like, okay, this guy, his name was Osama, and he speaks about us. Okay, I'm gonna complain against him, or I'm gonna complain like it happens, you know, to us a lot. You know what happens to me, man? I enter some even online games. Once they see my name, okay, Bin Laden is here. Let's kick him, man.
I'm sorry to laugh, but
no.
Yeah, I'm just trying to make you laugh, guys. It's okay, man.
We were treated that way once, and that same land that the fight is happening over the years, there's always been a war on that land over that land, and we were booted from that land just the same. That's why we're here in the West. So we understand you, but again, the prophecies that speaks of us, and that is what separates Torah from me. When Torah can say that your children would be sold into slavery, that you would live in a country, a land, that you'd be oppressed for 400 years, and it speaks specifically to our situation, and thousands of years after, I see me personally living that situation where I'm here because my foreparents were sent here as children. We were booted from Jerusalem AD 70, same land you're speaking of. We went we went in parts of Egypt, but most of us went to Portugal, Spain, and
Ethiopia.
Of course, Ethiopia. And the Edomite Jews who were converted in 130 BC by Hyrcanus went to mostly Spain, which are the converts that you see now in Israel. But that's a whole nother case. But they didn't like us even then. But when we went there, we were there, and suddenly there was a bubonic plague, and then we were booted again. Then we were on the western portion of Africa. Then we were sold into slavery when we came here. So we know the history of the land and the people. We know the history of Ishmael, which is the Palestinian area, geographical areas where you're from. We know the history of it, but the reality is that the Torah spoke to all of this, that this would happen. And he says that the end of this is going to be this. All of this is going to be destroyed by him, not by us. And he's going to make a new Jerusalem. So no one will be able to come and take that mount again. And he said that he will be the light of that city. And
Okay,
when
what
you
about,
see, huh?
you said about building a new Jerusalem.
Yes, he
So,
said that he will build a new Jerusalem, and it will come from the Shamayim, the heavens. I know you understand Shamayim.
I think one thing I wanna add.
Tariana,
Don't
I'm
wanna.
sorry.
it's
I'm sorry.
okay. You, yes, but the thing
But
is,
before you continue, Osama, we don't want to derail like too
Yeah.
far because we only have like a certain amount
yeah,
of time.
exactly.
But I'd love
This
to like.
subject is too
Continue.
much complicated to
It's
even
a lot
for
of
me.
it has a lot of depth to it.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah,
but
and I will not be able to deliver the message clearly, to be honest. You guys, maybe your language is better than mine, so I don't want to go in details with in this in particularly. I heard the rumors which they said want to build their temple on the after they destroy a certain mosque.
No. Different thing. No,
This
we
is- yeah,
were
we
not
not-
saying that. We're not saying that. That's not what we're saying. Yahuwah will build his new Jerusalem. Revelations 21. So, you know what?
I think his
Come
his,
see us
his
on
under-
Discord,
Yeah.
and we'll
Yeah,
talk about it.
his understanding is you got. I guess with brother Osama, he's actually living in proximity to
Yeah,
these people.
and I see how that
who are
affects
the
him.
convert. So that part is where when
Yeah.
we read Torah, he's looking at it from that aspect of
It's
the
happening
proximity.
now,
he
yeah.
has. Right.
Yeah, no. So
That's
I'm
correct.
sorry, no, that's not what I'm saying, Asama. That's not.
It's okay. I got your point. Don't worry. It's okay. I'm chilling.
All right.
I know what you
Tariana's
just said.
hand was up for a long time too. I think she maybe have forgotten her point, but let's see.
Yeah, let's see what. I'm sorry, Asama, but someone had their hand up.
It's
Um,
okay.
Tariana is Tariana.
Tariana,
I'm so
yes.
sorry, my sister, also, but
Salam alaikum. No, give them time, man. I just said what I wanted to say. If
yeah.
I go in details more, I will be maybe boring for you guys. Let's
Okay, all right. Tariana,
Hi, I just have a couple of questions.
you're kind of glitching.
Quick questions. The first
Can you repeat? You're glitching.
is,
She hear us.
oh,
Tariana, you're glitching. Can you repeat?
We can't hear you.
can you hear me now?
It might work better if she put it in the chat.
Yeah. Can you? Is it something you can type? Because we can't.
We can't hear. Your signal is in and out.
Oh, she asking who is Yehoshua. That's
Oh,
Jesus.
Yehoshua is. Go ahead, Stanley.
She looks at what is Yehoshua is, and Yehoshua is Jesus' real name, his Hebrew real name. So Jesus is his Koine Greek transliteration name that means nothing. But Yehoshua or Yeshua would have been his Hebrew name.
Meaning Yahweh is salvation.
Yahweh is salvation.
Okay, can we get to the. I'm going to just share the screen now. If we answer their question.
And then she
Tariana?
asks, as everyone meant for this Hebrew path.
Okay, let's answer it this way. The Hebrew is just a name that is given to it, but it is a way of the Most High. Hebrew comes from because we are descendants of Eber, which is our great grandfather. So we got the name Hebrew because we are descendant of Eber. So, but the way of Yahuwah was long before that. When Adam sinned, he had the way of Yahuwah in his heart before. When he sinned, he basically corrupted that heart. So the way of Yahuwah had to be applied externally to correct that internal problem. And that is where Torah comes in. So Yahuwah had to choose a people to embody and carry that message. That is where Hebrews came in. Because it comes from the seed of Yah as against the seed of the serpent, or the seed of the woman as against the seed of the serpent. And then it went down to Enoch, And it goes on and until it starts to gather momentum with Eber after the flood. Because Eber was a great grandson of Noah.
Yeah.
So the Hebrew way is just a name given to it, but really it is a way of righteousness. Religion is just a name given to it, but really it's the way of righteousness. The way of Yahuwah as expressed through a people, and it takes that name and it takes that connotation, but the real truth, it is a way of righteousness. So yes, everyone has to follow the way of righteousness.
Yeah.
If I answer your question.
And she had asked, but I don't want to, well, what do you want to do? You want to answer the questions or do you want to finish the text?
Answer the questions.
Okay. And she had, I'm sorry, I hope I'm not mispronouncing your name, Terina, had asked, do we go according to the New Testament as well with the Torah? Does the study focus on the Torah? Okay, now I'm really down. Okay, yeah, and the way I kind of understand this in regard to like the New Testament and the Torah, modern religious institutions have presented Christ and the Torah as conflicting. So if you observe one, you must neglect the next, or if you observe one, like one or the other. But actually, they go hand in hand. To know Christ is to know the Torah, because the Torah is what he taught. It's the way of life that he taught, the position of heart in loving God and loving man. And that's why he says in Matthew, when somebody came and asked him, they said, what is the most important commandment? And he said, love God and love your neighbor. The Torah and the prophets are hung on this. Now, it was not saying that, these are the only commandments to follow. It was actually saying if we observe Torah, then we know. Yeah. In observing Torah, we know how to love God and how to love our neighbor. And so they go hand in hand in that way, where to observe, to know Christ is, to know Christ truly is to, or to love him truly is to know his instructions and know his commandments. And to know his commandments is to know the one that it came from, which is, Christ being the living embodiment of the Most High. So they go hand in hand.
Yes, they do. And
Can you explain, guys, that Torah is really Genesis, Deuteronomy, and the lifestyle that is presented there takes us in the Old and the New Testament.
Yeah, sure. I think it's also
we don't
really
segregate.
Yeah, it's also important to understand that every person we see in Scripture knew Torah, for better or for worse. When we understand Torah, we start to understand why people made the decisions they did or why they had the perspectives they did, because they all not only knew Torah but had Torah in them, for better or worse. For the kings that went with it, like David, for the most part, and the kings that went against it, like Jeroboam. But these people, Christ, even the apostles, Paul, Shaul, all of these people knew Torah. So Torah is essentially the foundation that then sets the understanding for the rest of Scripture and the people that we see throughout.
And throughout Scripture, when you read all of the New Testament, you have to understand that when the Hamashiach was living, he didn't have Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, which wasn't their names anyway. Yohanan is John's name. Mattathias is Matthew's name. But we are not doing names now. He didn't have any of that. What he had was the law and the prophets, Torah and the prophets. So that's what he taught, that's what he promoted. And so the things that you see now, now that you have Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts, all those books, what you see is a living embodiment of Torah being explained in words. It's not something against Torah. It's actually living out Torah. That is why the Bible says that he's a fulfillment of the law. Because just like the Bible says that he's the author and finisher of our faith, it doesn't mean that he finishes us as in do away with us. Like some people think fulfillment means to do away with. Finishing us means to complete us. Fulfillment means to complete. Okay, so is there another question or can we go to the...
Yeah, we only have like a few left that we just want to finish up before, because I don't want to hold you guys for too long either.
Share screen.
Sure. Is this one?
Okay, so the word teaching, I'm going to go a little quicker now because teach definition in the Greek, didasko, and Stanley mentioned the Koine Greek. If you understand Greek, the Greek society was at war with the Hebrews. Their intention was to wipe out every instance of Hebrew, their lifestyle, their work, their culture, their everything. So understand that during the Hellenistic period, their only intention was to either wipe out, remove totally, or translate. That's where you got the Septuagint. To mean what they wanted to mean, to obfuscate them. Now, to teach, when you say to teach, it really doesn't say much in terms of living. From a Hebrew perspective, you said it says I teach, direct, admonish. So all of these sound dictatorial. It doesn't sound like that which we were talking about, rearing up, emphasizing. It doesn't speak to that at all.
It speaks towards like one action, to teach or to direct and admonish.
Right.
Hey, go there, do that.
And because it's abstract, you could interpret that however way you want to. But again, because the Greek, the Hebrew is concrete, we find that the yara being one of the most common usages, but there are 5 words. And it means to throw or to shoot. So we're starting to see action now. When you throw something or to shoot, as in an arrow, you have to direct that. You have to direct whatever you're throwing.
There's a process to it.
For it to fulfill whatever. If you're throwing it for a hoop, like you go to the circus and you throw over these hoops to get these teddy bears, you have to direct it while you're throwing it, right? It means then that there, it's not abstract, it's not arbitrary. It's something that has deliberate thought and actions.
And what's interesting too, when I imagine like the just imagining the difference between like directing and even the action of shooting an arrow. You know, the process of shooting an arrow is a process in itself, where you get the arrow, you have the bow, you load it in, you aim it somewhere, you pull it back, and when you do shoot it, it's going towards a direct intent that you already had in mind, before you even picked up the bow or the arrow. So it kind of involves the whole process. When I think about teaching, if I were to come forth to like teach you, I first already have in mind the direction or the action or the function that I have for you. I'm speaking from like the perspective of the Most High. When he already has a function for us, and then already having that function, he then loads us up and brings us in and teaches us and positions us and then pulls us back or rears us and then shoots us towards a particular direction that fulfills our own function.
Yes. And we're going to see this word come up in the context of the full body of the 5 Hebrew words here. And we're not going to spend a whole lot of time because of course, we don't have the time. The 5 Hebrew methods of learning are. So you notice that we switch from teaching to learning because Hebrew is concrete. So when you say teaching, it's abstract. It's a result of what you're doing when you shoot that arrow that will tell whether you are successful or functional. So for instance, when Yahuwah made the earth and he says that they were good, he said that they were functional. We translate it to be good, but it says functional, because if it was not functional, it was bad or evil. So if you shoot that arrow,
Sorry.
okay, can someone mute? Okay, yeah, that's okay, yeah. So if you shoot that arrow and the intended purpose of that arrow was not realized, then your whole action from before you get to that arrow, that whole process is not functional, it's dysfunctional, because it's not achieving what it should. So when you see this, so when we go to learning, it is looking at it from the functional perspective of teaching. So Aleph, some people say Aleph, which is the bull. You have a bull in Hebrew life. We drew everything. So the Aleph was the bull that shows strength. When you're going to teach a younger bull how to plow, they normally yoke that bull. That is where the term yoke, take my yoke upon you.
What does yoke mean?
Yoke means that they have a piece of wood they put over them and tie them together. And as the trained bull walks through and plows the field, the younger one learns, and after a while you can leave that young one to plow the field, and he's going to do it correctly. And that is why Christ says, take my yoke upon you. Because when you're yoked with Christ, you're walking with him and learning as you go.
Okay.
And of course, Christ is the Aleph.
That makes sense.
And Aleph or Alaf or Aleph Lamed spells Elohim. That's where we get Elohim from. Aleph Lamed is the strong leader. Okay, so Alaf represents the ox, and to learn by yoking. So it means that that person who you are going to teach is enjoined to you. Remember we speak about rearing up? They are enjoined to you. So you're going to live righteousness to teach them righteousness. You're not just dictating righteousness. You see how it is coming now? It's not just to say or to dictate. It's to live it. So I can't tell you to be righteous in a Hebraic sense. I have to live that so that when I say it, I'm speaking to a function. Because if I say it and don't live it, it becomes what Yehoshua calls whitewashed sepulchres. All shiny on the outside but rotten on the inside because you're not living the function. Okay. Lamad or Lamed. And we know that Lamed is a shepherd's staff. And we're not going to go through each of the letters that spell Lamed to show you how this actually represents. But it says to learn by goading or instructing. The shepherd's staff is used, it's long, and it's used to guide the sheep. It's also used to protect the sheep because it was pointed at points. To protect the sheep. So we learn by the shepherd's staff guiding us. By thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Here David speaking here in the shepherd terminology. Thy rod and thy staff, that's a lamed. That's a Hebrew letter that we will soon learn as Sean teaches us the letter one by one. So the lamed is the shepherd's staff. So when we look at to learn lamed, it's actually a word, and each Hebrew word derives its meaning from the individual letters that comes together to make that word. So each Hebrew letter has a meaning by itself, not like English A that is just a symbol. The Aleph means a strong leader, strength, leader. So the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, Aleph, has a meaning in and of itself. That is why when you transliterate it to God or Jesus or Lord, and it has no meaning, it then contravenes the perspective of the Hebrew, because for the Hebrew it has to be functional to be good. So if it becomes just symbols with no meaning or function, then it's evil. But that alone by itself. Yara, it comes back to learn by pointing. So you see Yara comes back now, but now you see Yara in a different setting, because after you've learned, after you realize that yoking is involved, goading or prompting is involved, then you realize pointing would now be an active thing, which means I would have to be there. I can't be somewhere else broadcasting to say to you, take the left turn, because we know sometimes we do take the right. Right? So I can't be there. So we realize that the pointing here, when we pull that out in a Greek sense, it doesn't cover the gamut of a Hebrew meaning or what the full context of learning in Hebrew entails. And you understand that all these actions is being done by the teacher. Again, we refer to Christ, Yehoshua or Hamashiach, which says, take my yoke upon you. Okay. Shanan, to learn by sharpening. And this sharpening, we see skills there. But remember, Hebrews look at things from how it relates to the person speaking or the people speaking. And so we don't say the box with the light in it shows. We would say it entertains me or it informs me or it educates me. We're referring to the TV, but we're referring to the function of the TV. So Samsung wouldn't come up in the discussion, nor Sony, because that's irrelevant to the function of the TV, right? So we refer to the function of stuff. So Shannon, so sharpen here was when they sharpened their swords on a rock. That would be a stone that is harder than the metal, but that's another story. So to sharpen here, to sharpen the skills of your son, again, the function to teach someone is to sharpen their skills so that they can function within a society, oftentimes a specific society relating to Torah. Yakar, to learn by chastisement. This part applies to us. You realize that if you do all this for your child and your child still won't listen, then you're going to have to take a little more serious measures in love. Not to destroy that child, but to bring him back into safety. Because all of this is done. This teaching, this educating, this rearing up is done to save our lives. So we are here in the Western world. We're seeing the chastisement. And sadly, oftentimes, we cannot see the rest because we cannot see a Hebraic perspective from a Western perspective. We cannot see how it is that Yahuwah is doing this out of love. We cannot understand Torah out of love because we just can't see it, because everything in the Western world is abstract and is most times punitive. So we see Torah not as a language or a set of instructions to bring us back to righteousness so that we can live to the fullest of what we were created for. We see Torah as a punitive document that is there to punish you. As we said earlier, as Yahuwah is standing there ready to slap you when you make a mistake. That's not what Torah is. Torah is about telling you that we walked away when Adam sinned. Our hearts were corrupted and became hearts of stone. And Torah is designed to have before us, because we cannot communicate with Yahuwah from the heart as we would then, or face to face as we would then. But something must be here to communicate that on a constant basis. And that is why Torah was designed, as you read Deuteronomy 6, to teach to your children. And the feast day, especially tabernacles, was designed for you to bring in other nations, Osama, not exclusive, other nations to the truth and teach them of Torah, where you don't do all these things to your neighbor or to your brother. If you understand what love is, ahava. Now, when you start to understand the Hebraic perspective of go ye therefore and teach all nations, then you realize then that you're going to have to first be among all nations. But Yahweh had told you long before that he's going to scatter you among all nations. This was mimicked by the Crusaders, Christian Crusaders, that is now. When Rome, under with the power of the Roman army, the Vatican decided that we're going to Christianize the world. And what they did was force, many lives lost. That's not the same gospel that we spoke about last week when we read and this gospel of the kingdom.
It's a different process of teaching.
It's a different. It's not even teaching. It's dictating. We realized last week that the gospel of the kingdom refers to us living in the fullness that Yehoshua HaMashiach has died for us. Therefore, we have the full assurance that our salvation is secured, our rescue. And if you're not in a place of danger or sickness, you don't need rescue, which again prophetically speaks to where we would have been today, in a place that needs to be rescued. But within us being here, our duty is to go forth and live now. You realize that all these 5 words have to do with living in a way, object lessons, so that is how we're going to teach others. That is how others is going to look and say, wow, they don't get as sick as easily because they don't eat everything that everyone else eats. They don't murder their own. They don't steal lands. They don't do these things. And Torah is way more than that, because if you want to understand what the 10 Commandments says, you have to read Torah. By just reading the 10 Commandments, you'll not understand it, I guarantee you. Because if I ask people what does taking Yahuwah's name in vain, they don't answer. Most will not understand. But the point I'm making is this, that to understand this New Testament, which our sister speak about, that was named that by people who wanted to give it the feeling that Torah was done away with and the prophets were done away with. So New Testament gives you the idea that that one is old, which they did call it Old Testament, and this one is new, so you're supposed to follow this one. And that is why the theological seminaries tell you to interpret the Bible from a New Testament perspective, so that everything you read there that they tell you colors Torah, and then there's a whole big gray area that most people don't understand. And when you go back to the Greek, the Hebrew, and read it, you say, wait, it was that simple? Yes, that's simple. Because guess what? It has to be simple. Because the Bible says that sanctify them through thy truth. Thy word is truth. If you're going to be set apart through the word, it has to be simple. Otherwise, only doctors in theology could be saved. Those of us who don't have as much education as the rest, as they do, would not be saved, because we just cannot understand it. So the point, you can stop sharing. The point I want to make here is that when we understand the Hebraic perspective of everything we read in while Christ was living on earth, I'm going to say that by not saying New Testament, about the life of Christ and the Talmudims, the disciples. When we read that is from a perspective of Torah. The book of James is about Torah. All of it speaks about how you live. The Beatitudes is about Torah. The prodigal son is about Israel and Judah leaving and Judah. But we spoke about that on the hike.
Yeah.
Most times when we ask about the prodigal son, we give some Western definition. But the point I'm making is that once we start to understand the Bible from a Hebraic perspective, understanding that it was written to the Hebrews, for the Hebrews, so that they could be strengthened to reach the world. It means then that every prophecy that is written about Hebrews.
And the teaching.
Every parable that is written about Hebrews and their interaction with the rest of the world, or vice versa, the rest of the world, how they interact with Hebrews. In the case of Revelation 13, and I saw the beast like with two horns like a lamb. No, so what I'm saying here, when we're commanded, this was his last words, to go forth. He told us already in Matthew 24 that we're going to be scattered. He said, pray that your flight be not in the winter nor in a Shabbat. Because the first flight would have taken place from Jerusalem, AD 70. Masad, the last city that fell in that group of cities, fell in about 76. But of course, he said in Daniel about the 1290 days. And we know that 1290 plus 70 brings us to 1360, the bubonic plague. That showed us what the flight would have really meant. That was when we were expelled from Europe, from these places. That's how we got here in the Western world through the transatlantic slave trade. So we're here now. But the command still stands. Teach all nations. That command still stands. That's our duty while we're here.
And I think that was very powerful, first of all. Like, wow. But even more, it directly answers the question I had at the beginning of the study. And I was saying, how do we go forth and actually reach people? Not just proclaiming scriptures, beating them over the head with religion. How do we actually embody and reach people? And even just seeing and understanding more about what the Hebrew understanding of teaching is, when it involves yoking and goading and pointing and sharpening and chastising in the way that the Most High teaches.
Miles, your mic is a little low.
Sorry.
Somebody said they can't hear you.
My bad.
Yeah.
I was just saying that it answers the question I had at the very beginning of the study, and how to actually go forth and reach people. You know, how not just putting scriptures in their faces, not just beating them over the head with religion. How do we actually reach people? And as I'm kind of learning now about the Hebrew understanding of what it means to teach, it like blows my mind, because it you good, Abraham? It is put so simply, you know, but even more, it is emphasized as I'm looking at these Hebraic methods of learning about the yoking, how it involves walking with somebody. First of all, living in or pursuing righteousness for yourself and walking alongside someone in that way. And the goading and the pointing and the sharpening and the chastisement, it just reoccurs as point of a process, which involves us internally going within ourselves and in our own relationship with the Most High, and allowing Him to enact that process on us, to then teach us how to enact that process on others, not being quick to judge or quick to shut down any one person, but being quick to understand and quick to be patient and quick to teach in the way that you have been taught by the Most High our whole lives, not just since we may have become aware in walking with Him, but how the Most High has taught us our whole lives, and how He taught our fathers and our grandfathers and our great-grandfathers with us already in mind. It just kind of blows my mind how much of a process He has enacted before us, being that example first, so that when we now carry the responsibility or the instruction of Him to go forth into the nations and teach all nations, we understand that teaching is not just screaming or shouting or dictating or directing. Teaching involves us self-reflecting and holding ourselves accountable, and it also involves us engaging processes with people, meeting people, talking to them, walking with them, learning them, listening to them, and never compromising on our truth, but guiding them, you know, and rearing them, whether it be children or friends or whatever. It just blows my mind wide open to the truth of like engage a process with people.
You know what? We never discussed this subject before. In fact, you realize how many persons were talking about teaching, and I kept saying, we're going to go into it. And as you sit there and speak, and I reflect on the discussions that persons brought up on their own about this whole subject, I realize the reason I couldn't plan the lesson I wanted to plan. I realized that, I remember today when I was driving, I said, Yahuwah, because I don't like to present something that Yahuwah didn't give me. I refuse. I used to do lessons where I just come from the intellect and I find this and I do that, but it has to be real and true. And while I was praying and reading all this week, it just wasn't coming. And I said to Yahuwah this week, today, I said, you know what? You need to give me something. If you say change it when the lesson starts, I'll change it, but just give me something. And you know what? All those history things, I had them on the books. And I was about to write some stuff, and my wife Sean came and she said, that's a PowerPoint. And I said I don't want to put the rest of that on it. I'm going to leave it. And I just did like 3 slides or 4. And I just did this, and Yahuwah was saying, just leave it. And I had a whole thing. And Sean says, is that it that you're going to put? I said, yes, I have some more, but I just don't want to put them in there. And I realize now the power of Yahuwah leading again. And I must say again, and I remember saying to him today, give me something, and I'll give it up if you ask me to give it up at the last minute. Okay, you know, sometimes you hold on to your message. I've worked to prepare this and I want to present it. And I said to him, I'll give it up if you say, but just give me something. And this is the result. And I remember when I came back home and I sat and at the desk and we were looking at the PowerPoint, there was a peace over me. And that's when I decided not to put the 10 pages and the 20 pages on. And I just left it. And this, when I was looking at it today, now I'm presenting it, it comes to me much more powerful than when I was looking at it. So I must say, Yahuwah be praised. You wouldn't understand what happened tonight.
Wow, really? We have 2 people who raised their hands. Sarah.
Go ahead.
Hi everyone, this is very informative, so thank you for that. And my question is, how would I amplify God's voice in my life?
How would you amplify Yahuwah's voice in your life? Firstly, read His Word. He's going to turn it up when He wants to and turn it down when He wants to. But firstly, read His Word, make a decision to walk in Torah. And it may sound legalistic now, but it's going to give you a full perspective of the things that Christ said and did. When you start to walk, when He called me, He showed me clearly, and I don't speak to many people about it, but He showed me clearly. I wasn't even in the church or in anything religious. In fact, I was with the wrongest companies, if there is such a word, wrongest. You understand the colloquial term. I was way deep in the opposite direction. I was breaking every possible aspect of Torah. And when He called me, He showed me a woman in a vision, old woman, called me into a building, I think, I says the ark. and she showed me a man, a black young man, not an old man, young man, with a blue mitre, turban, as you would see, that is wrapped with head, and had on a mantle, blue also. I didn't even know that blue means holiness to Yahweh. I didn't even know that. And she said, "This is Emmanuel," and I'm staring at him. I didn't know anything about history, anything about religion, anything. But I was convinced then. And when I woke up 2 weeks after I drew the picture, and everyone wanted to know who this was. I can't draw anymore. You draw better than me now. Well, we made a bet, but that's another thing. But I drew that picture, and I was so convinced of that fact, and I was saying it to everyone without proof. I had no proof, but I had a conviction. I'm saying that to say this, that he chose to tell me that, and I chose to start reading to know more about who this is. And I started reading. I've made mistakes, I've made wrong steps, but guess what? At the end of the day, stick to your first calling, that first love, that says that what brings you back to who he is. And guess what? For the many years I went to church, and I didn't know as much as I know now. I learned firsthand some stuff in terms of racism and stuff that would prepare me for where I am today. But it was not until I decided to fully embrace a walk in Torah, which meant a step away from the church. Not that the church people were bad people, but that the institution did not embrace Torah. And that's something we can discuss later on, but that it's not that I hated my fellow church members. To this day, they still form the majority of the core of my friendship. So it's not that I hated them, but that it was not conducive to where I was and walking and talking about the soon coming Jerusalem. Huh? The voice?
Yeah, the voice. Don't get too far off.
Okay. And so no, I'm coming to the point.
Okay.
It was not until then that then I stepped away and fully embraced Torah that Yahuwah started amplifying his voice even more than the vision. Because vision is one thing, but the revelation of truth is the utmost. Because he said that himself. And you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Sanctify them through thy truth, word is truth. All these things about truth, miracles, testimonies, visions, all that pales in the faith of truth. So the first step, I would say, until I acknowledged that I needed to step into his truth in Torah and started walking, I didn't know a whole lot of things I'm saying now. I had to actually start doing that. So I would say to you, for him to amplify his voice, you have to start to walk in his word. And once you walk, he leads you in greater. The path of the just is like a shining light, the Bible says, that shineth brighter and brighter to the perfect day. So if you're walking in the path, it gets brighter as you go closer.
Yeah, just got to be intentional. That's
Right,
for anybody. You have to be intentional in it. So I like to refer, like we saw being, like with Nick Cannon, it's just not to go too deep, but with Nick Cannon, he was not fully intentional, because when you start leaning in and being intentional, you know what to expect, right? Like you can see that, you know, that partiality where you almost there, you kind of like, I don't know if I want to go all the way in it, but I'm a tiptoe a little bit. You know, it's one of those things where we know once you become intentional, things start to become clear, things start making more sense. And it was the same thing for me. I grew up Adventist, same as Chris, and around 30, that's when I started being intentional. Like I knew a lot of things, but once I started saying, I'm going to be intentional in this, his voice, a lot of things that I had or things that I'm not sure of, just became so much more clear. So I became hot. I stopped being lukewarm and I became hot. And when that turned over, when that happened, it really became like, oh, now I hear.
And if I could just briefly finish, because great points. I think the thing that comes to mind as I listen is just is making room, you know, making room for him to hear you. The image comes to mind, and it's making room by Torah, by when we intentionally decide to go into his word, we're clearing space for him to speak. And the image comes to mind of like, if Yah is speaking to you, but your mind is filled with all these different things that are drowning out his voice, it may not be that he's not speaking. It may be that we need to make room in ourselves by whether it be removing ourselves from the things that are distracting us from him, or bring ourselves closer to the things that are of him, like Torah, like his word, so that we can hear his voice amidst or beyond the noises that are all around. So the idea of like making room comes to mind as well, and I think that is what we do when we are intentional in seeking him and going into his word. We are setting apart time and space for him to actually speak to us.
Thank you guys so much. It was much clarity.
Sure. Blessing, your hand is raised.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hey, it's the homie.
Hi. So I had 2 questions. But I just want to thank you for holding this, because it's truly been a blessing. But my question was about the names. So there was something said about transliteration, and like when you said that, it just brought so many things. Like a couple of weeks ago, you also talked about the importance of names. And I was asking my dad, like, what does my name mean? And I have so many, like, my dad's Nigerian, and I have so many names that mean worship and praise in my name, like Oluwatosin and stuff like that. But when you guys said about transliteration and how Jesus, in the actual sense, doesn't mean anything, and we're not calling him by his real name, it was like, well, ignorance and truth. Like, I was just confused about that. Like, when I say Jesus, it means something to me in terms of like, I'm talking to the one who died for me. So now that I've come to understand through this Bible study that I'm not actually calling by his name. It's like I have a friend named Mary and I keep calling her Barbara. It's like, what do I do now? It's like I've known you and I've made that association with that name and I've held it in such high regard, and now I know that it's not the truth. So like, how do you like make that adaptation? So that was my first question.
The way I kind of understand it, and I was talking to my mom and my dad about this like maybe last week sometimes. When we come into positions like this, sometimes it seems difficult because we feel like we now have to do away with what we know and bring in something new. The way I see it, it's not doing away, it's actually diving deeper. So if you've been now familiar with Jesus and what he's done for you, now that you start to understand, okay, well, he's actually Hebrew and his name is this, and well, what does that name mean? It's actually diving deeper into that relationship more than doing away with it. So imagine like you got in the pool and you're swimming with Jesus, and then he's like, all right, let's go deeper. All right, cool, I'm going deeper. Let's go deeper. You get deep enough, he's gonna be like, well, hey, this is what my name is. But I also need you to understand not only the change in name, but what does this name mean? So you have a deeper understanding and a deeper relationship with what it means, with what salvation is, with what it means to be saved, with what it means that, you know, he died for you. You know, so it's not so much doing away. I would look at it more from the perspective of diving deeper into that understanding and deeper into the relationship from where you currently are.
And to add to that, I still use the name sometimes, depending on who I'm talking to, simply because that's where some persons are.
Yep.
And I'm not going to condemn people because they use the name. Because guess what? As we discussed last week, Yahuwah takes you from where you are presently to where he needs. And as you say, it's a deeper relationship. So, yes, now that I know his name, and know that when I say it, it means something, because some people are still on the fence and saying, why are they saying that? But which you brought up, that was your state before. But the reality is that some persons are just not there yet. And I'm not too hung up about that at that point, because again, that's just where they are. So yes, if it takes you a while to transition between, and of course you're relating to people and you're going to use it interchangeably, because I remember the first week we were using words like Torah, Shamayim, and stuff like that, and persons are, what is he talking about? They were lost, right? So again, even for the sake of clarity, we just can't, we just have to interchange until we get to the point where all of us can speak or can understand Hebrew, which is a much simpler language than English, way more simpler than English. And then we would understand what it means to when we call the name, because once you call the name, the function as a Hebrew comes up. And for instance, English words, Jesus, if someone says Jesus outside of a Christian setting, no one would know what that person wants to say, even though they understand English.
Or even more, it's outside of a Christian circle. It's like,
I mean, outside of a Christian setting, totally, you don't know Christianity.
Oh, okay.
Therefore, the feeling or the emotion that you attach to English words are simply what is given to you. Every English word. It's what's given to you. Hebrew is different. The feeling and emotion that is attached to that word is because of the function of the word. In English, they just come up with a word, coin a word, which happens every year anyway, and they tell you this is the meaning of this, or they just reclassify an existing word and say this is a new meaning. And then you start to interpret things based on how the society deals with that word. The name Jesus is no different. The emotion that is attached to it is what you've been accustomed to based on your societal understanding of the name. In Spanish, when you say Jesus, which is the same spelling, they don't attach that same feeling to that name, right? But of course, in Hebrew or in Africa, when you say your name, your native language people, it may not mean anything to me because I don't understand it. But once I understand it, it's going to mean a whole different thing or more to me because I understand what your name means now. So every time I call your name, I'm actually saying the function of your name. If you understand what I'm saying. So if you apply that to the translation and transliteration, while I don't condemn people for saying Jesus, I do understand the difference of saying Jesus with an applied definition or applied emotions, or saying Yahoshua with an intrinsic definition and function.
What was your name again? Can you say that for me? It was beautiful.
My name?
Yes.
My name is Blessing. My full name is Blessing Esther Abiola Oluwatosin Eunice Adetunji. So that's my name. But answer the second question. It was about leading people. So in terms of what we were learning today, I was just wondering about in like London where I'm from, like when you're talking about I'm close to God. Oh, what church do you go to? That's the next thing. So it's always leading to, instead of going to God directly, it's through institution. And me personally, I've said this before, but I grew up both Adventist and Pentecostal. So on Sabbath, I would be in, on Sunday, I'd be my dad's church. It's because of my mom is from Barbados and my dad is from Nigeria. So then when they came back, they cultures. I just go into both. And so then through that, it's brought a lot of confusion. And so now I'm here and I'm like, yo, both of what I'm learning is basically combined, but to a deeper extent. And it's just like when I'm leading people, I don't really have an institution. I'm not going to say, this is where you can learn this or this is where you can learn that, because both places are not fully comprehending the entirety of the scripture. So it's just like I don't know where to lead people to other than to God. But then when I say, oh, let's talk about God, it's about what church do you go to? What institution are you part of? What denomination are you from? So that's the biases that people bring with them. So it's like when you are faced with that difficulty, how do you lead people to God?
Well, you want to?
Well, I would just say briefly that I definitely face the same struggle, especially the more we dive into Hebrew, which I don't see it as a denomination or as a religion. I see it as just seeking truth, you know? And so I found myself in a position where I start getting so aligned with truth that I realize truth is beyond any religion or beyond any one group. The truth is in the Most High and his relationship with me and people in my heart. And so for that reason, I find that when I'm in those positions, that's what we're talking about. It first starts with living, you know, and those discussions can be difficult. But I think sometimes you are there, you know, to be that voice for, hey, when we think of God, we think of religion, but I think that can be sometimes destructive because religion is man. And then so when man starts messing up, people start thinking that's God, you know? And that's what I realize a lot of people who have an issue with God really have when I have discussions with them. People don't necessarily have an issue with the idea of the belief in something that they cannot see or experience. We love, and love is not tangible, but no one will deny that love exists. People don't have an issue believing in something that is beyond what they can see. What people have an issue with is what the institutions have presented of who God is, and they say, no, you saying this is God, and I'm looking at what you've done, it doesn't add up. I can't accept your God. But when you live out the truth in your relationship, and you live out the truth in what he's done in your life, and you live out the teach.
We just went through the
yeah. When you teach from this Hebraic understanding, not teaching like go learn Hebrew, teaching by living out what you've learned in the Hebraic understanding, and that, hey, if I'm going to teach this person, that means I'm going to have to come here and sit with them. I'm going to have to listen to their disagreement, listen to what their struggles, listen to what they're dealing with, and then I'm going to have to walk with them and live with them. And it may not be that I can just tell you today, hey, this is truth and this is not. I'm going to have to walk with you and disagree with you and talk with you and listen to you and be patient with you and engage the full process of engaging a relationship with this person so that they can understand more about me, to then be immersed into the reality of Yahweh as we described, and I can understand more about them, to understand how to relate to them as a person, to then introduce them to this truth that I'm living out and seeking out for myself, and all coming from a position of humility and not authority, I feel, in understanding that just as this person is seeking to learn and seeking truth, I am also in the process of seeking to learn and seeking truth, and coming together and joining hands from that front to seek truth together.
Yeah, and we have to understand that people relate to you. She said it in terms of when I told people, like church members, that I'm no longer a member of the church, the response is, oh, I have to save him.
Yeah.
Yeah. They see salvation in terms of the church.
Mm-hmm.
And and I'm not going to say churches don't do good things. I would be a liar if I said that. But when we see salvation in terms of the church, what then happens is that when truth comes to you, and I lift the Bible and read it to you, the first thing in your mind is, does my church say this or teach this? And you're trying to rationalize whether to believe what you've seen in the Word based on what your church teaches. And that's a danger in that. This comes about from the colonial period, of course, because the West is not Christian by chance. The West is Christian because that was the empire of Rome, 2 million square miles. And so everything within the empire had to be Christian. And it was taught to you when they were selling purgatory that you could not be saved, with salvation had a different meaning than Hebrew, unless you subscribe to the church. So you had to be a part of the church, and subscribing to the church, here's how it was. You pay penance then you go commit the sin that you paid for. So you paid a certain amount of money and you were free to commit a certain amount of sin.
They were called leniences.
Yes.
You can actually Google it. They were actually called leniencies, where you can buy your wage of sin.
Right. And so people were accustomed to seeing truth and salvation in terms of the church, as in being synonymous with the church. But what we have to understand is that in general, the two pillars of the church being that the Torah is done away with, and that there's no longer a chosen people, goes against the pillars of Torah. That Torah is the standard of Yah, and there's a people that he chose to take it to the world. So you realize that the two pillars of the church conflicts with the pillars of Torah, and that is why Torah had to go for the church as an institution whole worldwide, not any particular church now, as an institution worldwide with over 40,000 different denominations. That alone tells you something. For that to exist, which they call the Israel of God, which is called the replacement theology, that is why they relate to you that way, because salvation is viewed in this sense while saying that Christ is salvation. You see the dichotomy?
The church is
But if you choose to accept Christ outside of the church, you're condemned. And I'm not condemning the church, because again, people are attached to churches and I cannot condemn people. But I'm just here to speak the truth. So you have people in the church. Stanley is a member of the church. So he knows very well that I'm not knocking him, because we talk for hours. We speak about these things. But we have to understand, when people relate to you that way, they relate to you from that perspective. You have to understand that and be patient with them until they actually see the importance of Torah. And that is why we take the decision not to bash falsehood, but to present truth. Until you live the truth and they see it, then they won't understand it.
And what me and Chris agree on is, like, even me, I am a member. I'm still consider myself Adventist, but I do so for the community and fellowship. Like, we still take our children to, it's the Christian church. I take my children for their education. But in as much, because like Chris said, I no longer hold my institution as the barometer of what I should accept as truth. I can now accept this and be intentional in walking this Hebraic pathway without feeling conflicted, because I know my institution is no longer my barometer. The Most High is my barometer. He is the architect of how I walk in this path. So I no longer, when I hear some truth or when I hear it, it's no like I got to get defensive, because usually when you approach or speak truth, like Chris said, the first thing person does is get defensive. They're like, oh, well, they'll take it as a personal attack, and that's not the case. So that's also a clear sign of where a person is at. If you present truth and you read something directly from Scripture, and they immediately take it as a direct attack on them, that's a sign they're holding their institution as the barometer of what they should believe.
Thank you. Truly, thank you.
Sure. And then the final person who had their hand raised, Junior.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to bring up what you guys earlier said about going into the Word and just praying and stuff like that. I want to go to the scripture where in Luke 10 verse 2 it says, Yahshua told them, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field. So I just think that we are taught from an early age to focus on ourselves, but Yahshua quickly puts this twisted perception straight. So there's nothing better than to look and see the same thing that Yahshua sees. Brings death and power to our lives, that it is evident through our value system. So in this way, ordinary lives become meaningful, even legendary in the eyes of Yeah,
Amen.
that's all I wanted to say, and I appreciate this Bible study that you guys have every week.
Sound. I appreciate you, Junior, and everyone. I
And
know.
everyone, yeah.
I know we went a bit long today, but I'm really just glad that you guys are here, and I'm glad for the things that were said. You know, even for me, like the clarity it's brought me. So I'm grateful myself.
You guys lifted my spirit today. I can tell you that.
Yeah, I was definitely feeling frustrated at the beginning of this, feeling
Yeah.
more clear-headed now, more directed. So,
Toda Rabba.
Toda Rabba, all praise to the Most High. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a bar. Let me put that.
You rapping, bro? You put a beat on? Like,